Hi, my name is Lemooriya, and this is part 2 of our YouTube series in which we provide family law content. So today's content is going to be about custody. So I'm going to speak about two forms of custody. One is going to be physical custody, and the second one is going to be decision-making responsibility, which can also be referred to as custody in the family law context. Right? So first, with physical custody. Physical custody is where the child will remain after separation. So which parents will the child remain with after the parties have separated and begin to live separately and apart from one another. Right? So there are a few things that you can consider when you look at physical custody. I think the biggest thing to consider is that you have to look at the best interest of the child. Right? That should be the foremost, the most important thing to consider when looking at living arrangements post-separation. So with physical custody, things to know is who the child relies on most heavily, right? So usually with younger children, they may more heavily rely on one parent versus the other. You can see this for like infants, right? Infants who are breastfeeding will heavily rely on their mother, and so it's important that they live with them as a primary place of residence. The second thing to note would be decision making. Right? So even though one parent has primary custody, physical custody, I should say, with the child, the other parent still has the right to make decisions about that custody, right? And so let's take the infant example, right? The infant is with their mom because they rely heavily on breastfeeding and the nurturing of their mother, and so the infant lives with mom. Dad would still have the opportunity in the circumstance to make decisions about the baby's health, upbringing, and any other important decisions when the child gets a little bit older, and maybe about education and whatnot. So that's a right that parents have. Every parent has the right to be involved with their child and make decisions about their upbringing. There are certain circumstances where that right is not provided, right? And so you might find that after a circumstance, after separation, one parent says, I want sole decision-making responsibility. And they'll usually say this because I don't think the other party is competent to make these decisions. I don't trust their decision making. There might be serious safety concerns with the child that they no longer want that parent to be involved with the child. But there's a pretty high threshold that you have to prove in order to say, no, that parent doesn't deserve decision making responsibility with our child. Right? And I'm actually going to get into this next episode where I'm going to go through what some of those reasons are and how we can proceed if that's your circumstance. Another thing that I would consider is, or that should be considered when looking at decision making, is that in order to have shared decision making, which is joint decision making, where both parents are equally involved in the upbringing of the child, you have to have communication, right? So we have a lot of clients who come in and they're just like, I want shared decision making, but I won't speak to my ex-spouse or my spouse. We don't have a good relationship. I can't communicate with them, right? And this poses a problem for us because in order to have decision-making responsibility or equal decision-making responsibility, there needs to be an open line of communication where you can call the other parent up and be like, hey, just so you know, our child has just gone into the hospital. They need surgery for whatnot. How do you think about that? You need to have open line of communication to do these things. Right? And if open line of communication is impossible, then you need to have a third party to facilitate communication. But there needs to be something going on. Otherwise, it's just not feasible or practical to have shared decision-making responsibility. So that's one thing I would consider. And of course, there are always resources to assist if this is a situation you're in. There are apps that you can use that facilitate communication between parties or parents who have separated. And there are always friends and family that you can speak to. So I hope this has been informative. If you have any other ideas of what you'd like to see in our channel, leave a comment down below, and make sure to like and subscribe to see more content from us. Thank you.